Merry Solstice for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. I hope Jack Frost isn't nipping too harshly at your nose. It's freezing out here just outside of Detroit. It was truly a winter solstice day. It was cold, it was dark. And I'm trying to stay as cozy as possible. I'm also trying to uphold the tradition of staying up all night to greet the rising sun. I had a pretty busy day, so I'm kind of tired, but I wanted to make sure that I dropped in with all of you and shared some of the Norse traditions for this particular day and a bit about its significance, and also for the fairy godmother lovers who are going to go out there and spread some magic and cheer this Yuletide season in their community. I thought if you understood some of these traditions, it might inspire some of your play as you head out and about to put a smile on people's faces and just make them believe in magic and wonder again. This is going to be just a little drop in. We're not going to go like way out there, but I thought I'd do a collective read as well to see where the light is growing in our lives at this time. You probably won't catch this until tomorrow. I was going to be recording it through the streaming service, but unfortunately there's just too much breakup with Mercury retrograde, and I think that's just the nature of the energy right now. You know, things are just sort of really moving in slow-mo at this time, even as they're speeding up. It's so curious. Just the energy in play is pretty wild right now. I don't know if you're feeling that, but you know, when we're looking at Mercury retrograde, it's perfect for a winter solstice night, the longest, darkest night of the year, to sit and reminisce and reflect on things gone by, you know, looking back at this past year, thinking about the experiences you've been through, having a little time for reflection and integration. It's also a wonderful time to gather friends around the fire and just sort of, you know, catch up, have some laughs, have some, you know, hot toddies, and, you know, share your experiences and your hopes for the coming year. It's also a wonderful time to, you know, brave the darkness of the night and stay up vigilantly, waiting for that sun to make its appearance, because once that sun rises, we know we're through the darkest point of the year. And from here, it only gets lighter and brighter. And of course, that ushers in a whole new cycle of growth. The life-giving energy returns to the earth. And when we're looking at Yule, it's all about welcoming the Sun King's return. It's a time of celebration. It's a time of knowing that it's always darkest before the dawn. There's probably associations with that phrase with winter solstice, I imagine. I'm sure there's ancient roots with that phrase, and that might come into play. It'd be interesting to find out. I might have to look into that. But you know, tonight would be a wonderful time as well to do a good burn. You know, if you do got the fire pit going, you got a fireplace going, you got a Yule log in that fireplace. You know, traditionally the Norse would have a Yule log that was like the size of a tree trunk, man. And they keep that thing burning in the community for all 12 days, right? And you don't have to do that, of course. You can adapt these traditions, you can modernize them. Also, everything that I'm going to be bringing in here, you don't have to stay on some tight schedule with it. You can make these traditions your own. You can adapt them to your own traditions and do them on your own timing. Just greet this season wherever you're at, okay? Don't put yourself under any pressure. It's not about that, but it is about trying to connect with a spirit of hope, you know, and just finding some good cheer, and maybe in a way you don't usually go about it at this time of year, you know. It's sort of thinking outside of the box and finding simple pleasures at this time of year and how you can extend that in your community. And, you know, get people kind of looking at this time differently as a time for connection and goodwill, and, you know, looking out for one another and lifting each other up, and just enjoying the simple pleasures in life, the things that are reason to be grateful that we might normally kind of overlook, which is really the true spirit of the season. And of course, inviting in those unexpected unexpected, magical moments, the divine play, and all those miracles that we hope for at this time of year. There's a lot of whimsy during this season, and it is about tapping into that energy. So, if you want to use this time for the spiritual focus, it really is a time for being in a meditative space and thinking about the lessons you've learned, the wisdom you're carrying forward, and what you want to plant in the year to come, and what you want to grow in your life. What are you taking away from this past year that you hope to provide a different foundation that you're going to build your future upon? And likewise, it's a wonderful time for banishing the heavy energy, banishing all that shadow energy that might still be clinging to you. So you can take some bay leaves and you can write on those bay leaves things that you want to release, and you can offer them up to the fire. You could also do chestnuts roasting on the fire, which is actually used for divination. Okay, and you can look into that a little bit more, but they say it's all about listening to how the chestnuts crack and snap and kind of communicate in response to what you're asking. And if you do get a lot of action going on when you throw those chestnuts on the fire, it's said to be sort of a sign that what you're wishing for is backed by a lot of energy and oomph from helpful spirits. So it's kind of a really old tradition that you can infuse in modern time, and also do a little spiritual work, and just bringing in a little bit of that divination. Divination is always something that's fun near the end of the year too, just sort of looking at what might come in the new year and how that may inspire you to, start to dream a little bit, think of different possibilities. So, not everybody is going to want to stay up all night until the sun rises, and some of you got to go to, work tomorrow morning, and you may not even catch this until tomorrow, likely because I have to upload it the old-fashioned way on YouTube. So you probably won't see this until tomorrow, but that's okay. All right. You'll see that I still haven't, gotten my altar together. I think it's going to be a little delayed, but that's all right too. And I'm doing the best I can. You're doing the best you can. And I will have it done. I'm thinking more like Yule Eve is when I'll get it done, probably, because I'm going to take Yule Eve off, and I'm going to take Yule off and just really sink in and let myself have some time to nurture myself. There will still be videos coming out though. I'm going to prepare them ahead of time so you all will have new stuff to view. But I wanted to touch base and share kind of a sweet tradition. It's a Norse tradition for winter solstice that I think is great for fairy godmother lovering, okay, to just weave a little whimsy into your community. And that is the gifts that they would give to the tree spirits to encourage growth and flowering and abundance and blessing of the land in the coming year once spring returns to the land. So what they would do is they would go out, and usually it was evergreen trees, okay? But you're not necessarily going to have evergreen trees out and about all around you in your community. Work with what you got. We got a lot of maples out here. We got a lot of aspens out here. So that's what I'll be using, all right? But you can work with any tree. It doesn't matter. But what they would do is they would take little sweet treats and baubles and ornaments and inspiring messages and gifts, little presents, and they would put them all over the trees. They would put it on the roots of the tree. They would hang them from the trees. And it was not only like having this sort of like magic of this giving tree, where people could receive these sweet little surprises that are left behind, and I'm sure that there was a lot of spiritism in that. I would imagine that there was a lot of oral tradition around that invoked the spirits of the trees and the land and fairy and the elves and the gnomes and, you know, all of that. And I'm sure that that made it very special for the children in the neighborhood, the young people in the neighborhood. But I think there's a lot of different ways that we can work with this as adults, you know, and to support our community. And it's something that I've done before, and I love it, you know. And it's cool too to sort of go around your neighborhood and there's all these decorated trees with these little sweet surprises. So one thing you can do that can be very helpful and is always at the forefront of my consciousness at this time of year is put together like a care package for those who don't have shelter, because I can't help but think at this time of year, every time I go out there and I brave the cold, how rough, you know, some people got it, you know, that are out there braving those elements that don't have a roof over their head. And I can't even imagine. I mean, there was a time in my life where I didn't have, you know, a home, but I was in California. You know, it's a lot different being in California compared to being in this area where, you know, it's freezing out here. It's freezing. And I know it's cold everywhere, but there's something about it that just really hits different, that drives it home, just how severe of a problem it is in this country, that there's people that are having to go without shelter, and that this is just sort of like more and more, it seems, overlooked. You know, it's just sort of like swept under the rug. We're so focused on providing relief, you know, to other countries, and our own country here in the United States really needs some desperate attention in this regard. And I personally feel like everybody has the right to shelter and food, and I just want to see this turn around so much. And I think the way we can start to turn it around is to move out of this sort of materialistic mindset and think more from the standpoint of really tending to our community, which I feel is something that's been lost over the years. I mean, way back when, you know, people used to be more focused on really looking out for their neighbors and being mindful of being there to support those in need. But as time has gone on, it's almost like this mentality is taken over, where it's sort of like, well, every man for himself. And I think especially when we look at the holidays, it's something that's become very focused on consumerism and greed and what I can get, you know. And I'm not saying that everybody approaches it like that, but there are a lot of people that do. And I think there's a lot of people that have had that mentality that are having like a huge wake up call right now that, yeah, you know, here today, gone tomorrow, you know. Security, you know, what's that when everything is kind of rocking and rolling? And so I feel like the more that we can kind of reconnect with the spirit of understanding that we're all going through a lot of changes, and there's a lot that is going through renovation in our society, and the more that we can band together, bring our energy together and think in collective terms, how can we all get through this together? How can we all support each other? How can we look out for one another? The better off we're going to be. And using this time of year as a way to sort of focus on that at a time when especially it tends to be more focused on who's got the most things, or, you know, sort of a flaunting of financial status, things along these lines. It can be such a shift in consciousness to start to look at this time of year as being a way to move into the spirit of service. No, certainly, I mean, you could always go and feed people, you know, you could go and, you know, donate your time and your energy to a soup kitchen, or, you know, even go out and make plates of food, you know, that you put a nice bow on, make it festive, maybe even include some kind of note that has some kind of encouragement, has some words of hope that you're putting on there, just to inspire people, to let them know that you care and that you believe in them, and to just sort of lift one another up. That can be a wonderful thing to do for those who are without food, for those who are without shelter, and spreading the service and the support around in that way is wonderful. But it's also really cool to bring in something a little bit magical and a little bit how can I put this? I feel that it's more dignified as well, in some ways, because there's been this huge shift when it comes to helping people out, especially with social media, where it's really become this opportunity for people to show off and let people know what a good person they are, because I'm going out and I'm helping this individual. And it really bothers me, actually, when I see that, when I see people taking pictures of them, handing out, food to people, or, handing out support to people. It's not a photo op, and there's sort of a stripping of humanity when it's approached in that way. And I think this is something that's good to be mindful of and reflective of on the darkest night of the year, where we are looking at the things that we normally don't look at. It is a time for going into those deeper places. It is a time for some reflection and some self-examination. That is definitely part of the spirit of winter solstice, is preparing to kind of like cast off these shadows and moving toward growth and evolution and into this life-giving phase of working with that building energy of the light. But you can't really recover the light until you first understand the dark, or you understand what is an oppressive force. So this is looking at it through a more kind of like revolutionary lens or transformational lens, where we can use this as an opportunity to start to address some of what is creating inequities in our society, and doing it in such a way where it doesn't strip others of their dignity who may need a helping hand. And that's what I like about the whole spirit of fairy godmother lovering, because you're not doing that. You're not going out there to get credit. You're not going out there to show off what you're doing. You're not putting it up for your status update. Oh, I went and did this, and here's my snapshot with the person I helped. There's something about that just feels so icky. It doesn't feel like it's motivated from the right place. It's not coming from a true space of altruism. It's coming from a place of ego gratification, and that's not the correct motivation. And I feel like this is almost an interesting parallel, because when we're looking at Yuletide, Yuletide is a lot about appeasing the spirits, and it's a lot about recognizing what you're grateful for, and also seeking blessing, seeking the blessing of the fates to encourage that there is harvest and that the community is supported moving forward. Everything was very communal motivated. It wasn't about the individual. And I feel like that's a lot of the roots that have been lost with these holiday traditions, and why people don't connect with them in meaningful ways anymore, because at a certain point it does feel sort of trite and like you're just going through these motions, and it's all about superficiality. When in reality, these holidays were a time to allow us to feel deeper connection, to really understand the ways that the earth supports us, and to have a true appreciation and gratitude for that. And not only that, but to be considerate of others and their needs too. And that it's so important that we're all nourished and that we're all supported and we're all fed. So I think it's beautiful to recover some of these traditions and bring them back. So going out and decorating these trees, I like this, because you can leave these little presents, attached to the tree, at the base of the tree, with gift tags on them that say, a gift for you. Yes, you. If you found this, this is for you. And that kind of takes away that piece of feeling like you're receiving a handout. Do you know what I mean? If you are somebody who's never had to deal with that, then consider yourself very fortunate. But there are those of us who did grow up in poverty or had to experience that, what it's like to need to ask for that kind of support or ask for that kind of help. And it can be at times a really humiliating experience. And I feel like this is such an important piece of doing this kind of service work. It's not about leaving somebody feeling like their dignity has been stripped of them because they need to receive this help. Instead, it's about really inspiring them and letting them know, like, you're not cast aside. Like, I care about you. There's a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood here, and we're in this together. And I want to be here for you, and I want to lift you up, and I want to encourage you. And that's what I like about this, working with just kind of leaving things aside, leaving things to be found in a synchronistic way. I think that's great. And if you're going to go out and you're going to pass out plates of food, that's wonderful. But maybe, stop and share a cup of coffee with that person that you're handing the plate to and talk to them, and maybe have a plate for yourself too and share a meal with them, get to know them, get to know about their experience, give them some real quality time and energy. I think this is so important, to really connect in this way instead of just sort of like going through the motions because it's the right thing to do, or you want to feel like you're a good person. There's something really different about breaking bread with somebody that maybe you wouldn't normally sit and break bread with, There's a lot that can be learned from those exchanges, not only about the other person, but about yourself as well. It's really illuminating. And I think when we're moving through this, on this level, and we're willing to really make real connections with people and people that we normally maybe wouldn't connect with, that is such an opportunity for growth. And it's also an opportunity to really have, some transformation. And I think it's really the way that we need to move forward. We need to kind of like dispel of all these dividing lines. And a lot of that revolves around class, and economic status is a huge dividing line that a lot of people don't really recognize. But I think it's something that's very much at the forefront, and especially at this time of year. And this is something we should focus on all the time, not just because it's the holidays, but this is an opportunity where you can start to transform what the holidays mean for you. And maybe the holidays can instead become a time when you look at how you can bring a little bit of that spirit back into life. And maybe it'll inspire you to nurture that spirit in the coming year. Something you can do that can be really helpful for people that don't have shelter in leaving these gifts with the trees is put together in like a Ziploc bag, something that's waterproof. You can put things that can keep them warm, a wool cap, some nice gloves, a scarf. You can put in gift cards for coffee, okay? This is excellent. Or maybe, a place where they can go and get something warm to drink, maybe get a bite to eat. And you can just leave these around so that they can just receive it. They can just receive it without feeling like they're looking for that handout. You know what I mean? There's something different about it. It hits different. It really does. And it'll hit different for you too when you do that yourself, instead of feeling like you need that recognition. I really appreciate this aspect of fairy godmothering where it's more about like kind of leaving things rather than directly encountering people, although that's fun too. All right. But in general, when it comes to service, I feel like the more that you can make it just easy for people to receive these blessings and receive this support without feeling in any way undignified or used as an opportunity to, you know, highlight your virtue, that really transforms the experience. And until you directly experience it yourself, you won't understand. So I encourage you to think about this as you head out there. And of course, for the kids, it's fun. You know, they'll see all kinds of like little sweet treats on the trees outside and little fairy gifts left behind. I mean, you can even leave behind, you know, runes would be really nice. You know, you can make some kind of rune talisman, and maybe with the meaning of the rune with a blessing on it. You know, you can bring in traditions and the roots of these traditions as much as you want to. But traditionally, it was like little presents, little gifts, sweets, you know, things along these lines that they would leave hanging from the trees, ornaments, and they were free for the taking, but they were also put there to sort of pay respect and give gratitude to the spirits of the trees and to encourage further growth and blessing for the community and for a prosperous new year with abundant crops so that everybody could be fed and everybody could be supported. It was really about encouraging the blessing of the land so that the land would continue to support us, which is something we're very disconnected from with all the modern technology. You know, we forget that the earth is what supports us. The earth is what supplies our food. The earth is what gives us a foundation to build our shelters upon. So this is a time when we're very mindful of that, when we're looking at the roots of these traditions, and paying it forward in this way is a beautiful way to express that. And the more that we can move into this kind of spirit of the season, then the more we do find that we're supported in return. It really does work like this. Okay. So in terms of the trees, if you want to get into a little bit more of the spiritual practice of it, you know, feel free to bring some tobacco with you, some loose tobacco, and you can kind of like, I like to sprinkle a little, you know, circle of tobacco around the roots of the tree. And I mean, it's spirit candy. The spirits love it, okay? And so it's just a wonderful way to find favor and blessing. And so I encourage you, you know, to work with this, play with this, and make these traditions your own and let them infuse what you do when you get out there into your community and you do this very godmother loving and you spread a little bit of that magic around and just make people feel like there's reason to feel hopeful. You know, there's still magic out there, and I think people really need it at this time. So I want to do just a little read here. You know, it's interesting. We got the Wheel of Fortune in reverse again. Like I said, you know, a lot of people are having a rough time at this time of year. I also feel like, you know, the energy, it feels a little bit lower than usual. I mean, usually at this time of year, we do kind of wind down as we're heading into winter, but I also feel like with the retrograde motion and just sort of the heaviness of the past year, I mean, Scorpio, man, all the Pluto action that we had going down over the past couple years and everything we've recently moved through, it's been a lot. Okay, so I feel like people are really in this space where they're tired, you know, they're tired. So again, like I was saying, don't put yourself under a lot of pressure, move at your own speed. But even if you just devote a day to this, to going out and being out in your community, trying to make your own little, you know, sector of the world a better place, it's really going to support you. And here we are with this energy here, the darkest night of the year with the moon. I feel like this is a time to really get in touch with your intuition, sink into your emotions, encourage a little dreaming, you know, just allow yourself to sort of just explore your inner realms tonight. And maybe you want to do a little journaling. You might want to, you know, just allow yourself to, you know, go over those photo albums, you know, look back on some old memories or read some of those letters that you've had tucked away. You know, this is a time definitely to explore and think about the past and have a sense of reverence for the past, not only for the beauty that it brought into your life and the beautiful experiences that you've had with others, but also maybe where there's been losses. It's certainly a time when we also think about those who are no longer with us at this time in the earthly realm, okay? But they're always with us in spirit, and love merely transcends and evolves. It never dissipates, it never dies. And this can be a time too when you can light a candle for that loved one who is not able to be here in the physical to celebrate with you at this time of year, but it can be a wonderful way to just create a little reverence around their spirit and to remember them and remember the good times and remember the wisdom they passed on to you. So it's very much a turning within time. It's a reflective time, and it's a time for quiet, quiet and also really just appreciating those you have around you, appreciating the presence in your life and coming together. And, again, so much of the energy that's forward right now, look at this. It's all about self-preservation, self-protection. A lot of people are wanting to spend time alone right now. I'm noticing that there's not as much of a sort of like social atmosphere this time of year. People are kind of keeping to themselves. I do think a lot of this does revolve around the economic status in the world right now and the challenges and uncertainty that are ahead. But a lot is being balanced out at this time with justice, all right? And this is the time of balance. We have, equality here when we're looking at winter solstice. It's like the darkness is totally about to start to shift. We're starting to move out of that darkness and we're moving into the light. So where we may feel like there's been a lot of heaviness or there's been a lot of shadow or there's been a lot of intensity or things have felt really kind of like held back or stagnant, we know that this energy is about to turn. It's natural, and the balance always returns. We also got Libra at the South Node right now, so I feel like this is a time of karmic balance as well. There's a lot of heavy stuff that's getting wrapped up, but we know that we got a lot of growth coming in, especially as we move into that dawning of the age of Aquarius when we have Pluto direct in Aquarius coming in around the 20th of January. And that's going to be in play, for a good 20 years. We're going to have that energy at the forefront. So we are moving into a time of expansion. And it was 33 on the clock as I went into that there. So this is the time also to find your balance. It's also a time to balance the karmic scales. It's time to let that shit go. It's time to release anything that you're still holding on to that is kind of done and dusted, and just allow it to be, sort of like settled. Chalk it up to the game, man. Maybe you dealt with some rough hands and maybe things didn't turn out quite the way that you wanted them to. But when we're closing up important karmic cycles, we never can really understand the full picture until we start to actually move into the new energy that's been opened up as a result of that release, okay? So anytime we have a letting go, we create an opportunity for new energy to come in. And we're just about to step into this. One more cut, and then we'll do a little shuffling here, and we'll just get like a little read for the energy of the light that will be building in the collective's life. This is for all signs here, okay? That wheel will turn, so where it was upside down, we know it's about to turn right side up, all right? So, yeah, we've been in this, sort of like downward spiral, okay? We've been going really deep to the bottom of the well, and we've been looking at some heavy stuff. I mean, that Pluto energy is heavy, and Pluto in Capricorn is heavy. I mean, it's in the trenches. You're like doing some really intense inner work, all right? And you're also really being required to be accountable. You can't like bail out on it. you know, Saturn being the ruler of Pluto, which I think is interesting because we do have Saturnalia coming up, you know, later on this week. Father Time front and center, you know, at this time of year when we're looking at Yuletide. We are looking at the passage of time. And it's like we are wrapping up that time of sort of slogging it through, and we're getting prepared to start moving more into that revolutionary energy where it's like, okay, we're aware that the old structure doesn't work anymore. We're aware that what we were doing before isn't a fit any longer, that it's outdated. We've outgrown it. It's time to infuse some fresh energy into our lives and open up to new experiences. And at the same time, there's work to be done to sort of like tie up loose ends. We've got to follow through with that. And so, you know, we've been trudging through it. You do have to have a certain sense of stoicism when you're working with Pluto and Capricorn, where you have to kind of be like just matter of fact about what you're dealing with and what needs to be done. And there can't be really room for complaining at this time. It's just more like get to it, clear out what you need to clear out, do what you need to do to balance things out. And from there, you know, you'll be ready to really step into that expansion. So we know that things are about to turn. Okay, this wheel is about to turn. We're heading into the winter season. And from here, it's only up. Okay, from here, there's the quickening of the light. There's the building of the light. There's the encouragement of growth. And we're going to start to get some momentum going here. So let's see what kind of momentum is going to be building. What is the light that's going to be growing in the collective's lives? And these two cards flipped up. Oh my goodness. Will you look at that? Empress to the 10 of Pentacles. Okay, look at this. So we do know that there is this opportunity for creativity, for growth, for abundance, for stability, for creating a collective family, you know, coming together collectively. That's how I'm really seeing this, just in nature of what we've been talking about. When we're looking at the 10 of Pentacles, we're looking at building something together. We're not looking at building something as the individual. We're combining energies to create something that can really support everybody, you know? And I see us getting creative about this. I see us thinking more collectively. I've seen the shift in the consciousness. I hope you're recognizing it too. People are starting to think more about how can we all support each other through these changes, and what can we do to move forward in a new way where everybody has what they need, because there really truly is enough to go around. It all has to do with the distribution of resources and the fact that there is greed in the world and there is inequity. So how can we balance that out? How can we bring a sense of justice? How can we play a part in it? And when we're looking at something like, you know, fairy godmother lovering and going out and being of service and being a merrymaker in your community and inspiring hope, it may seem like sort of a small thing, but it begins there. Because when people don't have any sense of hope, or that things can get better, or that there isn't any kindness left in the world, or that people don't care about each other, then there is sort of this fatalistic mindset that can take over, that can lead to a lot of apathy, a lot of stagnancy. But when we move into more of this creative space and we bring a spirit of good cheer forward, and we start thinking about how can we really, you know, bring people together? How can we build community? How can we build community in such a way where it becomes an economy in and of itself, where we get creative about ways that everybody can be supported? And there's a lot of ways that we can do that. And I'm doing exploration in this regard myself. And in the coming year, I'm going to start to bring more of that in. And please be patient with me, because like you, I'm experiencing these growing pains, and I don't profess to have the answers about how to go about that. But I do have some different ideas about how we can make that work, that can at least be discussion points where we can like open up this topic and start coming together as a community and think, how can we really start to build community and build it in such a way where that community, that sense of collective, is that foundation that we build our future upon. There's ways that we can shift this. There's ways that we can turn the tide, and we don't have to just go along with the agenda. All right, we don't have to go along with the agenda that's being rolled out. We can transcend that, and it's ready to be transformed. It's crumbling. Nobody wants to be part of the old structure anymore. It doesn't work. It fails every time. And we have to go about things in a new way. And Aquarius will demand that. The age of Aquarius will demand that we go about it in a new way, or else suffer the result. You know, it is time to move into that expansion. But I see actually there's a lot of hope here. I mean, this shows us moving into a time of greater growth, prosperity, creativity, where there's abundance, and there's also a building together. And I think this is really a reason to have hope for our future. We do have Libra and Taurus energy here coming in with that Empress. We had Libra come in as well with the Justice card. So again, I feel like this is a lot of the South Node work at this time, that collectively the way we build the light is by moving out of that South Node energy. We close the old karmic cycle. We look at what hasn't worked and where people have been left behind. And instead we start to transform this by thinking of ways so that we can bring people together. We stop focusing so much on those dividing lines. Instead, we look at how can we start to connect with each other in a real way. And a lot of times, I have to say, that involves like stepping away from the screen, like step away from, the social media, and actually get out there, interact with people. It amazes me when I go out into the community here and I talk to people. They're always like surprised that I just want to sit down and like have a conversation with them and open up, topics like this. But it's always a positive experience, and people want it. They want that kind of connection. And it's beautiful. Like every time I've done this, I go out in the community and I just like walk up to somebody and strike up a conversation. And it doesn't take long until things get very real and things go very deep. And soon we're in this like creative space together where we're bouncing ideas off of each other. We're sharing experiences. And it's a beautiful momentum that is created by that. And every time I do this, more people come and sit with us. And soon there's a group of us talking, okay? And this is as simple as it is, It doesn't have to be some grand affair. You don't have to host some big event. It's as simple as just going out and actually making contact with people you don't know, extending a little kindness to the people around you, and being willing to open up conversations with people that you don't usually open up conversations with, and be willing to get real, be willing to go deep and watch what happens. But I feel like we're moving out of this time where we sort of feel like we're hitting a brick wall and there is no way forward, to actually feeling inspired, As we move into that dawning of the age of Aquarius, there's going to be this like creative momentum that starts to build. Yes, there's going to be rebellion against the existing structures, but at the same time, there's going to be that spirit of exploration and expansion, and absolutely community, networking, making connections, because that's what the house of Aquarius is all about. That 11th house, it is about community. It is about making contact. It is about weaving that web of connectivity and bringing the creativity forward in such a way that it really does have more of a collective focus than as opposed to the individual. So the fact that we are balancing this old cycle and that we're preparing to move out of the Kali Yuga, which we don't have much longer for that to go, okay? We're in the last stages of it, the final stages of it. But by moving into this energy now and starting to kind of like get a bit of a head start on it, just being willing to do, even just what may seem to you the bare minimum. But it's interesting what happens when you're willing to take a step in a direction, the way that it has a momentum all its own, and it starts to encourage you to take new steps, and then new energy comes in and you make contact with new people, and that's the way it works. Okay, you don't have to have it all mapped out, but I feel like however you can move into this spirit during Yuletide, it's only going to further you as you step into the new year. And that growth is just going to continue. And that creative energy is going to continue to build. And I do feel like a lot of people that have been dealing with financial setbacks, financial challenges, are going to start to experience growth in the new year, which looks really good, okay? But it definitely involves doing things in a new way. Okay, so let's hear a little bit more about this time of flourishing, growth, abundance. This is a good sign to see here. It does look like community. It looks like building together. It looks like valuing the roots, feeling of togetherness with family, soul family. You know, it doesn't always have to be your blood family either, you know. Family are the people that, you know, make you feel at home. Family are the people that create that space where you truly feel like I belong. You know, these people get me, these people resonate with me, these people understand me. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to really nurture the spirit of togetherness in the coming year and to experience a lot of growth from it. There's so much that's going to grow from making these connections. So I believe this is just a wonderful way to start to kind of root this energy in advance to go out this week and make some connections with people. You know, I do love, you know, handing out little messages of hope, little fortunes. I kind of like sit down and I channel the messages. I just ask spirit to give me the messages that are needed. And then I write them down on pieces of paper and I roll them up in little scrolls. And I usually tie them to something like a candy cane, something like this. And I'll just go out and about and I'll walk around in the neighborhood and I'll say something cryptic, whatever I'm inspired to say, but I stay in character and I'll just hand them to people and I'll say, the angels told me to give you this, or the fairies told me to give you this. And I just walk on. But it's interesting what happens even with something that simple. You know, it's still making contact. And some of the reactions are funny. I'm not gonna lie. You know, sometimes people look at you like you're a little strange to be approaching them. And that's illuminating too. That'll teach you a lot too when you recognize how foreign it is for people to even be approached by somebody wanting to give them something, you know, wanting to extend some kind of good cheer their way. It's almost like so often people don't even know how to receive it. But when they do, there's just so much joy that comes out of it, all right, for everybody involved. It feels good to, you know, just weave a little bit of that cheer into people's lives and to see the smile on their face. And it also feels good to know that, you know, maybe you were able to, in some small way, show others who have shut down or feel like there isn't any more goodness left in the world, that there are still people that care, you know? And that enough can sometimes be enough, you know, that alone can sometimes be enough to, you know, keep a person going. You know, you underestimate how much a demonstration of caring, kindness, attention, recognition, you know, can mean to somebody, especially if they're going through a really rough time. So I think this can make a big difference. Oh, and I love this. The Seven of Wands came out again. It's like, yeah, let down your defenses and enter the community. You know, get out there, touch the pulse of your community. Really feel what's going on outside of your own experience, because it's the connectivity that is going to wake up the magic in everybody, that's going to inspire us to come into that place of all getting on the same team instead of the division that really disempowers us and keeps us feeling like there is no way to figure out how to carve a way forward out of, you know, the sort of mess that we're in. You know, this piece right here, we got the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, we got the Fool in reverse. Again, you know, it's showing that the people are feeling, you know, very much afraid of sort of stepping into the new. And they're desperately clinging to the facade. And a lot of this has to do with the facade of the ideal, what it means to be successful, what it means to have arrived, you know, still chasing here in the States, that American dream, all right? But it's sort of like keeping up a false image of it, because I see a lot of this going around too, where people are sort of putting a front like they're better off than they are, instead of being real about the challenges they're facing, the situations that they're facing. And, you know, there's this piece here about not even knowing, how do I start in this new direction with the Fool in reverse, and being too self-protective. But I see that this is kind of like the answer here is to let down the guards, you know, come into the community. You know, maybe you feel like, I don't know if I want to get out there, and I don't know if I want to go and do this, like, you know, role playing in the community. It might feel a little awkward. Maybe you feel like it disrupts your image a little bit or whatever, you know. But be willing to play the fool. Be willing to look foolish, you know. There's something sacred about the fool. There's something sacred about being the clown. And you know, if it makes somebody laugh, or, you know, brings a little silliness or play into the atmosphere, don't you think that's what we need right now? And maybe that is what we need. You know, less image, okay? Less superficiality, less keeping up with the Joneses and keeping up appearances, and more being willing to just be human, you know? Be humans who are fumbling through things and figuring it out as we go, and maybe feeling a little foolish as we take some risks and try new things, but look at the growth that comes out of it. I mean, there's so much growth that comes out of it, but this can be what holds us back, you know, from reaching out and making those connections and going about things in a new way. And I really encourage you to just like let your guard down and watch what happens. This is what builds the light. It's all about connectivity. The more that we connect, the more things prosper. And we got temperance on the bottom of the deck here. Okay, so this is Sagittarian energy. This is that spirit of gregariousness, but it's also about standing on what has true value. And when I see that diamond, I think of the impenetrable diamond, which is about achieving a certain place of clarity within the self about what truly has value at the end of the day, and standing on that. And that's what brings everything into a state of balance and reciprocal flow, where, you know, it makes me think of that saying, may you never thirst, you know, where we have enough to go around. And there's something about really understanding this sense of connection right now that's so important, and will bring such a sense of clarity in building the way forward and bringing in that light. And I feel like we're really looking at bringing things into balance right now. I mean, two strong signs of balance. We had justice come in, we have temperance come in. This does show that we're achieving a new sense of balance. We're achieving a new sense of what truly has value. And it's because the stuff that we've been chasing, you know, it's becoming elusive. And as that happens, it causes us to have to like reflect on ourselves, on our lives, on what's before us. And that gives us a new sense of clarity about what truly has meaning and what truly has value. But this is positive. It shows that we have the ability to really alchemize the energy. And we are in a place of balancing things out. And there is divine assistance. We do have angels on our side with temperance here. We do have the ability to bring things in balance, but it does require that we have consideration that it's a reciprocal flow. So as long as we're in this place where we're closed off and we're holding in and we're hoarding, or we're just worried about our own position or how we look, or keeping up with others so we can somehow feel like in some way we've reached some pinnacle of success or we've achieved something, even as there's so many that have done without. This temperance is about understanding the balance that we haven't really achieved anything if it doesn't really consider the benefit of all, you know? And I do feel like this is coming forward more. People are starting to be more balanced in their views. they're starting to understand that we really have to get outside of this framework of the haves and the have-nots, and we have to think about how we can move forward in a way that doesn't leave some people out of the loop. And this over, attachment to materialism, um, the luxury things, the status symbols, this is what is ready to be released. It's not just about, well, I'm aboard, pull up the ladder. We need to turn this around and get into the fray of it with everybody. And yeah, you might feel like a fool. We all feel like a fool when we're going about something in a new way. It may be unfamiliar. And I think that that's what kind of holds people back most of the time, is that, especially with social media, there's just so much pressure, to keep up a certain facade. That's why I'm so glad I'm off of social media. I'm so glad I'm not on social media anymore. I didn't really realize like how much that whole programming was just affecting my mood. I didn't like being steeped in it myself, and I always had a hard time with social media. I did have, my fun with my friends on social media, but there was a lot of superficiality that I didn't care for so much and didn't resonate with me. But I think that's because I'm familiar with the have-nots. Okay, I didn't grow up in in a family where we had a lot of financial stability. I know what it's like to go without. I know what it's like to not have those things that make you like the cool kid on the block. So I feel like it's given me a little bit of a different perspective and a certain sense of balance that a lot of people lack, that are just sort of like chasing the facade of what makes you complete. A lot of people think that only if I have, the material things am I somebody, only if I drive this kind of car, only if I live in this kind of house, only if I make six figures, and that's not really what it's about. Now, I don't have an oppositional relationship with wealth, because I do think that we need to change the framework of how we look at wealth. But I believe that wealth is something that is meant to be distributed in a conscientious way. I mean, there's only so much you really need for yourself. And maybe it's really about looking at success in different terms and understanding that, wealth isn't necessarily a negative goal if your desire is to garner that wealth so you can really use it to make some kind of progressive change in society. And so you can be part of creating and implementing new programs or new ways to support, people that maybe are struggling and need a little bit of additional support. All right. So this is about kind of like being willing to get out of the ego and get out of the sort of selfish pursuit for personal gratification, and think about, what really matters at the end of the day. And I do feel like this is something that is going to be growing more, this momentum. It's like the lights are turning on, in the room, and maybe there's a lot of people that are starting to realize that, yeah, I did achieve these things, or I do have this image, but at the end of the day, it's kind of hollow, because it doesn't really amount to anything meaningful. And there's a lot of people who are starting to experience this through reversals. It's like the facade is crumbling. And as it's crumbling, there's this recognition that like, oh, well, wait a minute, you can't always bank on this. Here today, gone tomorrow, and this can all change overnight. So at the end of the day, what do you got? If you're just focused on yourself and your own needs and your wants, and you don't consider what's best for the greater whole, what does that leave you with? What does that leave you with at the end of the day? When you are in a position where you need support, you know, it can be a big eye opener for people. And maybe some people are starting to realize they've been kind of foolish in the way they've been going about things, or maybe realizing that, you know what, that's kind of petty. Like, I haven't had my focus in the right place and I do want to make some changes. So I do feel like there's a lot of awareness that's starting to develop, and people are starting to understand that the more we kind of just stay in this mindset of what's good for me, and we don't come from that place of what do we need to really grow and evolve and benefit as a collective, that they're kind of like, you know, that's what's foolish. That's what's making a fool out of us, is to still be invested in things that obviously have no true value and are starting to fall apart. starting to fall apart at the seams, and we really need to do some mending of the way we look at how we're going to move forward collectively. And it does really involve bringing things together, as opposed to trying to set ourselves apart or making ourselves be more special or having more privilege, you know, because we have a certain status or we've achieved a certain level of financial success. Because it's becoming very clear that these are things that, you know, are subject to change, you know, and they're definitely going through a restructuring. So I think that this is where the light is really growing. And I like to see this, that there's more of a collective mindset that's starting to take root, and more of a consideration as we move into the new year for how we can build together and build something solid that supports everybody. I love this, you know. This sounds like balance. It sounds like justice, and that sounds really good. Let me see if there's any other final points that want to come in around this for the collective. We have Aries energy that came in there with the full, Aquarius energy, Earth sign energy, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Okay. We had fire sign energy come in with Sagittarius, which is all about, you know, having a more philosophical view of life, but also moving into a sense of optimism. It is big Jupiter energy. It's understanding that there is enough to go around. There is opportunity for expansion. Okay. And this coming in with the Seven of Cups to the Emperor. And I love this. Look at this. Emperor to Empress. Okay. This is South Node, North Node. So I see that we're really coming into balance, and that as much as we feel like we're limited at this time, what we can't see right now, but will become readily apparent as we start to move into 2024, is that we do have a lot of options. All right. And it's very important at this time that we allow ourselves the opportunity to move into this place of sort of reflecting on what are our options? How can we move forward in a new way? How can we make some different choices? How can we start to play more of an active, creative role in the future that we want to build, not only for ourselves and our loved ones, but also for our community and the world as a whole. And I do feel like we're really preparing to sort of get our inner compass aligned with the right choices for us. I feel like we're entering the new year in a spirit of reflectiveness, mindfulness, thinking about our possibilities, okay? And I think there are more possibilities that are going to open up. But what I really see coming forward here is a conscientiousness, and I love this, an awareness of what is the best choice to make in the situation that considers the greater whole, that really considers what has true meaning at the end of the day. And I feel like we're moving into this growth and expansion. So I feel like we're leveling up. This looks good. This is good energy. This is moving into a state of partnership. It may not be evident right now. You may not feel like there's any openings. We do see there's sort of this pessimism that's still kind of there to close out the year, where people are kind of guarded, and they're too focused on like their image or saving face, that, you know, maybe they're afraid to reach out for help, afraid to reach out for support. or maybe just don't even know how to take the first steps. But where there wasn't options before, I feel like options are opening up in the new year. And it's about being really mindful of what you choose to take on. You know, what do you want to align with? But whatever you align with, there's growth there. All right. And there is moving forward, and there is a moving on up into the North Node, right? That Aries energy, Taurus energy coming in there. All right, let's just do a cut of the deck here to close this off and leave us with some final thoughts. Look at this. We got the Knight of Cups. So there is an invitation to move in out of the cold and come into alignment and have a rebirth where we can come into that place of unity instead of just consistently looking back at where the disappointment is. We're being challenged to move forward with a spirit of love and hope and compassion, and really gleaning that pearl of wisdom that we'll take with us as we move forward, so we can come into a more unified state of mind, you know, where it's really about moving forward from the heart. I get with the Knight of Cups. You've got that water sign energy there, okay? Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. So allow yourself to dream, all right? And allow yourself to play, and allow yourself to move into that creative space, and take the risk to open yourself up to connection. And I don't know, there might be a very special message coming in to close out this year. There might be somebody that approaches you and they open up their heart to you, and there's something about this that maybe gets you out of this sort of guarded mindset. I feel like there's some kind of healing on offer here. There's some kind of advance. There's something that comes in that opens up the heart, and it opens up also a new cycle of growth and connectivity. And from this, a lot will prosper and come into bloom. I think that spring is going to be such a time of really recognizing the growth that's come out of the old cycle. And I do feel like things are going to be starting to head on the upturn, you know? That wheel will move in the opposite direction. If you feel like you're on the bottom of the wheel right now, you're going to get a higher view, okay? The wheel keeps spinning around. And though we're kind of closing out some heavy stuff, I do feel like things are going to get a lot lighter and brighter. There's a lot of growth on the horizon, a lot of coming together, and a lot more community building. And there's something really positive for our future. But you got to open up to it, you know? You have to be willing to put yourself out there. And it's okay, you know? It's okay for it to feel awkward, you know? Let your guard down a little bit. Let the love in. And then you'll see that your options will multiply. And it'll be good.